We are at the Donner Trail Park here at the mouth of Emigration Canyon, close to the Hogle Zoo, Red Butte Gardens.
Welcome or welcome back. My name is Julie, and along with my baby brother Ethan, who is out for a visit, and his dog Shibu, one of my current obsessions, well, actually a longtime obsession, is the Donner Reed Party disaster and its place in Utah history. And I am so excited to bring you along as we discover the history of the Donner Reed Party in the great state of Utah, how it has shaped our present, and what it means to me. This is just the first of several videos in this series exploring the Donner Reed Party through Utah and its impact on Utah.
And what we are attempting to do is to not entirely follow the path, that's not really possible, but to find some of the parts, the path that the Donner Reed Party took through this canyon, through this area, and the trail that they blazed that then allowed the Mormon pioneers led by Brigham Young to come the following year and make it through into this area to then settle Salt Lake City. Just an interesting connection that I had not been aware of till a few years ago about the Donner Party. Now, I was born and raised in Northern California until I was 13. So what we learned about with the Donner Party was Donner Pass, and you know, where everyone died or was eaten, died and was eaten. Anyway, we learned about all of that gruesome part of it, but there's actually a huge part of their history and their journey right here in Utah, right here, that I had not been aware of really till just a few years ago, and we are trying to track it, find some of it, because it absolutely relates and is a huge part of what is now Utah. Like they played a huge part in making this state possible with their suffering. they did make it possible for this to become, for better or worse, for this to become what it is now today. So I do want to look at some of the places that they would have passed, and I wonder in this park, you know, I'm all about trying to connect with the ghosts. Well, I mean, I don't mean like literal ghosts, but the shadows of the past, and I wonder how likely it is that any of them, obviously this wouldn't have been a manicured garden or garden park at the time with these trees and grass and everything. It would have looked a lot more like those mountains over there. But who knows if under a previous tree that may have been here, they might have stopped and rested, fed the oxen, took a break right here where we are. It's very possible. We've come to the This Is the Place monument, and there is quite a bit to see here. There is an admission of like $19, I think, if you're going to do all the stuff. We're not planning to do all those things. There's, you know, a pioneer village, blacksmith demonstrations, horse riding, all kinds of stuff. We're not doing any of that today, as we have several other places still on our list that we're going to explore. But what we did want to do here, because this is mostly focused on the Mormon pioneers, the LDS, that made their way through here, but we of course are still focusing just on the, what do you call it, the Donner Reed Party. So what I found online was that there is a reference, at least in one of the monuments, to the Donner Reed Party, and that is what we are here looking for, though at some point I do want to come here and explore the whole thing. And this part costs nothing to explore. So how lucky is that?
Oh, they have that too.
What's that?
They have that in Nauvoo.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, it's they're, well, like, there's a thing that they say of like Joseph Smith telling Brigham Young that there's like going to the Rocky Mountains and plotting out a city and stuff there. So
yeah. Okay.
It's kind of in reference to that.
Cool. Well, why not? Eyes westward.
It's the exact same one. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Chior, can you give kind of a brief nutshell version of the This Is the Place story?
Yeah, they were like going through all of the states over here, Nebraska and Wyoming and stuff.
So where did they start out for this
Nauvoo.
particular journey? In Nauvoo, Illinois?
Yeah, across the Mississippi into Iowa, stopped in winter quarters in Nebraska, and then from there just trekked out with the wagons in Nebraska, Wyoming, came down through here, and they were going, like, actually Brigham Young was like really sick at the time. I forget what he had, but
any number of diseases could have been at that time.
yeah, there's like different recollections of how it happened, but basically like they came through here, and like he like came out and like looked around the valley and said, this is the right spot, or this is, they like to say this is the place, but I think what he actually said was like, this is enough, or this is the spot, or something like that. And they're like, all right, let's stop here.
And here they stopped.
Yeah.
And thanks to the Donner Reed party, they were able to get through here. I just really want to give credit where it is due, because the Donner Reed party, they do get a lot of flack. They are just basically remembered as cannibals. And yes, that's a big part of their story. Okay, it is a big part of their story. And absolutely tragic, absolutely horrible, and horrific. But there was so much more to them than just that. And they did, in fact, blaze the trail and the path, at least part of it, for this city, for this state to even be, like I said, for better or worse, for it to be what it now is. They did make a lot of things possible, and they were, God, they were a strong people, which is really interesting, especially because, you know, some of them, you know, they were really wealthy, well-to-do people that were used to more of a life of well, at the time, luxury. And, you know, was it Mrs. Reed or Mrs. Donner that had like her whole piano, big old beautiful piano in her wagon that was basically fitted out like a you know, like a mini house. You know, it had draperies and all this nonsense, and ended up having to be, you know, ditched. They were not the kind of people that were used to this kind of effort. And so what they were able to do, even if it was, you know, naive and short-sighted and woefully ignorant of what they were getting themselves into, the effort that they put in, and just the endurance and how hard they had to work and push to accomplish what they even did is truly commendable, amazing, remarkable. And it did make a lot of other things possible. So I just really want to kind of, we get so much, you can find 9 million videos on here all about the starvation, the tribulation, and the cannibalism. I don't need to go into that, and that's not, where we're at here in Utah is not where that happened. There was plenty of disaster that happened here, but this is not where they went cannibal. Okay, that's in Donner Pass in California, in the Sierras, closer to where I grew up, and someday we will go out there and we'll look at that. But that's not what I'm trying to do here, and not what I'm interested in doing here. More, I want to focus. Oh, we got a wasp.
No, that's a.
What was it?
I have no idea. Something much different.
Mama's allergic to like anything that flies, crawls, creeps, or smells good. So, so we got to be careful. But I do have an EpiPen. So, but anyhow, I want to focus on their stalwart nature, the effort that they put in, how valiant. Like I said, even if woefully ignorant and unprepared, how valiant actually they really were. You know? And so somewhere in this monument, there is supposed to be a reference to them, and I would like to find that.
There also are things out there, so I could like run over those, see what they say.
No, we can do it. I've got the cane. But first, let's see, get an idea of this. Oh, okay, so this is what we were talking about. Young arose from his bed and took a survey of the country. While gazing out on the scene, he was enwrapped in vision for several minutes. When the vision had passed, he said, "This is the right place, drive on." So try to picture that, guys. None of this would have been here. We would have had those, you know, mountains and that kind of terrain, and they're here in their wagons, not on this manicured lawn. And I mean, it's bumpy and bouncy. There's no road, there's no highway, freeway, no, not even a dirt path really in this necessarily spot. There's whatever they had gone through that we'll try to find that the Donners had forged, but just imagine, if you can, being in these wagons, you know, with your oxen, your doggies there, whatever, and he says, drive on, you know, making your way down this mountain. Yeah. With this whole valley out there ahead of you. It's wild to think about. Especially where they were coming from, this country that they were coming through, and just the topography of it all, the geology of it, as you come through, it would have been just astounding coming from the East Coast and the Midwest. And, you know, folks from the UK and whatnot that were Mormon pioneers, early converts, would have absolutely been astounding for them. And the Donner Reed party as well. Ah, good boy. So there's reference there to the Spanish explorers that made their way through here. What's that? That's the focal point? Yeah. Yes! We found it! We found it! Oh, look at... God, that looks awful. Oh, doesn't that look terrible? Oh, guys, that really took my breath away. Oh, okay, here we go. Here we go. I don't know. I just feel a little bit flustered, emotional, because this has been such an obsession of mine. Like I said, raised in Northern California and having learned so much about this as a child, and having family here in Utah, and having driven over Donner Pass so many times, including in the winter. It's quite a to-do, Donner Pass. And ooh.
You want me to read it?
I think I can do it. I don't know. It's big. It's silly maybe, but this is a moment. It's kind of a moment for me. God, it's kind of a moment. Maybe you could hold the camera. What if we had you come on in? All right, here we go, guys. In the summer of 1846, the ill-fated Reed Donner Party, following the advice of the adventurous but erratic Lansford W. Hastings, brought their heavy wagons drawn by oxen over Hastings Cutoff, a distance of 100 miles from Fort Bridger to Salt Lake Valley, encamping September 3rd on the banks of the Jordan River. Oh my goodness. Oh, at present North Temple Street, the party then proceeded to California, crossing the Great Salt Lake Desert to Pilot Peak and the barren wastes southwestward around the Ruby Mountains and along the Humboldt River to the base of the Sierras at Truckee Pass. The 90-mile waterless desert 90 miles. 90 miles. With their babies, guys, with their babies. I wonder how many, oh God, how many people they buried. How many babies, how many children, how many older folks. Focus. The 90-mile waterless desert crossing from the site of present Grantsville, Utah, to Pilot Peak was accomplished under the most trying circumstances. It consumed 5 days and nights, 5 wagons, including Reed's famous Pioneer Palace car, that's what I was talking about, were abandoned on the Salt Desert. I didn't know that's where it was abandoned. And several thirst-crazed oxen were lost. Misfortune continued, and the company did not reach the Sierras until late October. And look at this, we're doing this right here in the middle of October. That seems so, I don't know, apropos and poignant somehow. Then, because of early snows and the extremely emaciated condition of their cattle, the party failed to reach the summit and was forced to encamp at the present Donner Lake. Here, during the winter of 1846 to 47, 36 of the number died of starvation. Only 44 of the original company reached Fort Sutter. The Donner tragedy resulted from a note found in a tree oh my God, I didn't know that's how, I didn't know. I thought they had bought his book. It was because of a note in a tree? I have to look this up and verify it, guys.
This also is a refer to, if you've heard of the movie 17 Miracles, the beginning of that kind of talks about this thing.
Oh my God. Well, I'm going to have to watch it for reference.
Yeah.
Stop it. I really thought it was from the booklet that he was selling. Okay. The Donner tragedy resulted from a note found in a tree put there by Hastings. Sorry, now I'm mad. I'm just mad. On his way east a few months earlier. I'm so mad. And confused. A note in a tree which instructed parties headed for California to take a cutoff from the present Hennifer, Utah, across the Big and Little Mountains to the Great Salt Lake Valley through the present Emigration Canyon. Hastings advised this route, which he had discovered a few months earlier, because he had found travel through Weber Canyon almost impossible, yet he seemed to be unaware of the difficulties to be overcome in the 36 miles to the Salt Lake Valley, which required 21 days of travel and trail breaking for the wagons. Nor did he seem to know of the nearly 100 miles of desert country to be traversed beyond the shore of the Great Salt Lake that was devoid of either vegetation or water. No one had ever yet traversed this route. A year later, this is vital. A year later, Brigham Young and the Mormon pioneers were approaching the present Utah border. On July 13th, 1847, the president instructed that a select party be sent in advance to mark out the road more clearly, since the Reed-Donner Trail was scarcely discernible. 2 days later, this advance party, led by Orson Pratt, discovered the Donner-Reed Trail, which they improved and followed over Big and Little Mountains through Emigration Canyon into the valley. And right here, this is the most important part. This is what I want to give the Donner-Reed party with this video. This is what I want to give them, is this last paragraph. Because this is their legacy, not the cannibalism, not all of the naivete, the disaster. No, I want to give them this. By following this route, the Donner-Reed route that they hacked through the wilderness, by following this route, the Mormon pioneers saved more than 2 weeks' travel, a matter of great importance, since it enabled them to plant wheat and potato crops for the fall and winter harvest. I give no credit to that bastard Hastings, none. He had no idea what he was doing, and I consider him at least partly responsible for the death of all those people. With his ignorance and his pomposity, that's not a word. What is the word? Arrogance. With his arrogance, to leave that there. It was their choice. Absolutely, it was their choice to follow those instructions. And we got to give credit and blame where it's due. Okay, I get that. But I do feel like a lot of fault has to lie with him. Has to. But more importantly than all of that is to give them the credit. They made it possible through the deaths of their people, through their hardships and their tribulation and their trials. They made it possible for these other people, whether that's what, that's probably little solace for them or their descendants, but they did in fact make this possible, and I think that is something we do need to honor and respect, and I am grateful that there is here at this is the place monument and park. I am so grateful that they did put this very prominent display here in the monument, and I mean that this sculpture here is so incredibly telling. I mean, you've got this guy, I mean, they had to hack their way through, and I mean, carrying your children, helping the oxen to pull the wagon. It's overwhelming. It's a lot. It is a lot. Wow. Then along here, this is interesting. This does show the path, the route of the Mormon pioneers from Nauvoo to the Great Salt Lake. So starting over here, and that's their winter quarters.
Started here.
Okay, so starting all the way over here in Nauvoo, crossing the Mississippi. That's the Mississippi there?
This is.
That there.
Right
and then is this the Missouri?
Yes.
And then stopping in winter quarters, that's quite a story. And all along this path, past Fort Laramie, Sweetwater, Fort Bridger, and then finally down in through here, thank you to the Donners, into Salt Lake City to plant their crops. And then build what it was originally called Deseret, but then finally given its, charter or whatever.
They were forced to call it Utah based off of like the Ute tribe that lived here.
That's
it wasn't
right.
their choice to.
No, that was a government thing, being forced to call it Utah after the Ute tribes, which actually I think is appropriate, and I'm glad. Plus, the name Deseret sounds weird to me, and what would we be called? Desertians? Desertans? Desserts?
Maybe honeybees.
Honeybees.
Because that's what it means.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a funny thing. But anyway, I am glad that it is called Utah and does give at least some honor to the Utes, and that's a whole nother, we'll get into that in another video another time, about what was lost, what was taken, etc., etc. But I am so glad we were able to find that monument. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. This is a lovely place, and I do look forward to coming back and exploring it, paying the ticket price, and being able to see the demonstrations and tour the Pioneer Village. So please do stay tuned for that. That will be happening, but not today. We have several other places to explore. Thank you so much for watching. I encourage you to get into history. Look stuff up. There's so much to learn, and we learn from it. We hope to avoid some of the mistakes made before us and to appreciate and respect what some of those mistakes made possible. The subscribe button's down there, so's the like button. I'll see you all real soon.